Chapter 4 The Tree of Life. This dream begins as if I'm watching from above, as if God Himself has pulled me into His chair, giving me His angle. That perspective changes everything. From the floor, the scene looks like horror chains, blades, pieces of me missing. But from above, it looks like something else entirely. It looks like proof. Because this isn't just a story about being broken, it's a story about what grows when you finally set intention with God. The moment I told Him, I won't tell you no anymore, lead me, something shifted in the fabric of my life. The basement wasn't punishment, it was the soil. Every cut, every loss, every piece stripped from me became the ground where something stronger was already sprouting. That's the paradox. What felt like punishment was preparation. The pruning was never to kill me, it was to clear space for something stronger to break through. This dream isn't just about suffering, it's about manifestation, about what happens when surrender becomes seed, when prayer becomes blueprint, when pain itself becomes the raw material for proof. Because the tree of life doesn't grow in perfect conditions, it grows in places where death once reigned. It grows from surrender, and I was beginning to see it take root in me. This is Act 3, The Apple. The dream opens in a wet, cold basement, black and white like an old film reel stripped of its sound. The air is metallic, heavy with rust and damp. Shapes press into the walls, spirits, watchers, silent presences. They don't step forward, they don't interfere, they only watch to see whether I'll survive or vanish. In the center is me. I'm chained to the floor, water pulled at my knees, my body is ragged and torn in places. And the black bear is there, massive, snarling, its claws rake, its teeth tear over and over. Every time I stir to rise, it throws me down again, relentless, determined to keep me broken. The watchers murmur, she won't make it. She'll be a hindrance. We have to leave her. Their voices echo like a verdict. But I am not afraid, I do not beg. Instead, I go quiet inside myself. I close my eyes and I pray, not with panic but with surrender. The same prayer I had spoken in waking life. God, help me, please. I don't know what to do. If I'm meant to stay, then soften me. Make me more patient, less angry, less bitter. Change him. Shape him into the man that I've begged for. But God, if I'm meant to go, then help me go. The moment the prayer leaves me, something shifts. I don't feel the bear anymore. No claws, no teeth. The weight begins to lift. My chains fall away like water. And then I am simply standing, whole and upright, my feet rooted in the stone, my spine tall, faint light flickering violet beneath my skin. I don't turn back, I don't check, I just know the fight is no longer mine, because the silence is enough. The watchers are staring now, not murmuring. Their disbelief hangs thick in the air. How is she standing? Only then, when I finally glance over my shoulder, do I see it. The bear, dragged backwards into darkness, its body hauled effortlessly by a saber-toothed tiger, fangs buried deep, ancient power radiating from its frame. The beast is pulled away like a carcass, limp and helpless, disappearing into the rift. But I hadn't heard a thing. No roar, no struggle, no fight. The victory was behind me, already finished. I never lifted a hand. I never even looked. God had done it. And when the bear was gone, the basement filled with a different kind of silence, not dread and not despair, but anticipation. The watchers leaned forward, unsure of what they were seeing. I should have been broken. I should have been finished. Yet there I was, standing steady, violet light pulsing from beneath my skin. Someone finally asked, "How are you standing?" I took a breath that seemed to reach deeper than my lungs, and then I said as casually as someone commenting on the weather, "Well, he cuts pieces of me off, and they always grow back. When they do, they grow back stronger, but he doesn't know that." The words rippled through the room. Confusion gave way to awe. What they thought was destruction had been the soil of renewal. What the enemy meant as ending had only multiplied my resilience. I wasn't diminished. I was regenerating. I stand there, chains slack at my feet, the violet glow trembling under my skin. The watchers are silent now. The bear is gone, dragged into the depths by a power older than anything I can name. The room smells different, less like rust, more like rain and stone. And he is there, not rushing in like a rescuer, but standing beside me as if he's been there the whole time. God's presence isn't blinding, it's steady, like a hand on the small of my back, keeping me upright. When I finally lift my head, his eyes are on me, not pitying, not stern, but proud. The pride in his gaze breaks something open in me. All of the stubbornness, all of the fighting, all of the self-saving I've tried to do on my own. The moment swells and spills into words I've never spoken before. God, I've made a mess of my life. I have no idea what I'm doing and I need you. So I'm yours. From here on out, I don't want the life I've built for myself. I want the life that you have for me. Show me how to let you guide me. Teach me how to hear you. And I won't put limits on how you choose to speak. If it's scripture, I'll read. If it's silence, I'll wait. If it's dreams, I'll listen. Just show me the way, and I'll follow. The prayer leaves my lips like steam rising from warm water. For a heartbeat, the basement holds its breath like even the stones are listening. God does not move closer because he doesn't need to. His nearness thickens until it's almost visible, a soft gold shimmer folding around me. The glow under my skin brightens as if answering. Something shifts, not a flash or a bolt of lightning, but the quiet click of a lock undone, the sense that the door has opened between us. This is the moment everything pivots, not the bear's disappearance, not even my standing. This surrender, this handing over of my every self-made thing is the hinge. It's the first stroke of co-creation, the first yes. And though he doesn't speak, I feel the words move through the marrow of my bones. I've been waiting for this. The basement air shifted after the prayer. It was still cold and wet, but not dead anymore. It was as if my words had changed the oxygen, like something unseen had moved closer. The glow under my skin pulsed once, twice, and then steadied, the same rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't just mine. Around me, the other women stirred. They were still shackled and gray as ash, shoulders hunched in the half-light. Some of them hadn't moved in so long their hair clung damp to their faces. Their eyes tracked me warily, expecting me to fold again, expecting another lash of pain to push me down. But no pain came. I didn't hear instructions, I didn't feel hands on my shoulders, but something in me knew, like a compass settling, that it was time to move. My ankles were still wrapped in the slacks of the chain, but no longer felt like iron. They felt like ribbons and easy to step out of. I lifted one foot, then the other, leaving the shackles where they lay. The sound of the links hitting stone was impossibly soft, like glass beads sliding across velvet. I stood fully, shoulders straight, the glow under my skin brightening until the walls themselves seemed to blush with color. The women stared. One clutched her chains tighter as if afraid she had imagined it. Another blinked hard, her lips parting, but none of them spoke. My eyes caught on something across the room, a tarnished nameplate mounted on the wall, my old last name. The name that had weighed on me like iron, the name that had been a cage as much as the chains at my feet. Something inside me shifted. I began to walk toward it, slow and deliberate, the glow beneath my skin deepening with each step. My intention was clear, to rip it from the wall, to destroy it with my own hands, to end the hold it had over me. But before I could reach it, the metal nameplate flickered. A small spark danced at its edge, then another, then a sudden burst. Flames ignited from within the letters themselves, quiet, blue-white fire eating through every curve of my old identity. I froze, watching as the name burned without sound, curling in on itself, collapsing into ash before my eyes. The embers drifted like moths, then disappeared midair. I didn't lift a hand. I didn't say a word. The fire did the work for me. The women gasped softly, one covering her mouth as if she'd seen a ghost, another whispered she didn't even touch it. When the last ember disappeared, there was nothing left but a faint scorch mark, the shape of a name that no longer existed. I turned away, lighter than I'd felt in years, stepping toward the far edge of the room, away from the slab where I'd been pinned for so long, every step a small defiance of the rules that they had been living under. Above the damp stone ceiling there was a faint sound, wind moving through branches, the sound of somewhere else. When I looked up, the basement ceiling thinned, not crumbling, but thinning like old paper held against sunlight. Through it, I could see a crown of green leaves shifting against the sky that I didn't recognize. A tree impossibly tall, roots sunk deep into the very place where I stood, its branches spread like a canopy above ruins, enormous and patient. I reached my hand toward it. The glow under my skin answered, violet threading with gold, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a prisoner. I felt like a branch being grafted back into something alive. Behind me, the women whispered. Not words, just a soft, stunned sound. They didn't know how I'd slipped my chains. They only knew it was happening in front of them, that someone had stood up where they still sat. I didn't say anything out loud. But God's presence felt like a nod beside me, pride, permission, and a hint of invitation. My prayer had not only freed me, it had opened a path upward. I turned back to them, their faces pale and searching, and for the first time my voice carried without effort. "Let's climb into that tree." They all looked at me, hesitant. I pointed toward the ceiling, toward the tree that was somehow growing out of both heaven and basement at once. "There's plenty of room," I said quietly. "Come on, let's go." And just as I said it, the first root cracked through the stone floor like a pulsing vein. They blinked at me, blinking as if the sight of me standing was too much to reconcile. Their whispers grew into words, ragged and fragile. One shook her head, her eyes fixed on the empty chains at my feet. "I can't leave. He needs me here. If I go, who will take care of him? Who will keep him from falling apart?" Another clutched her shackles like a rosary, rocking slightly. "Out there? What would I even do out there? I don't know how to live without this. At least here, I know the rules." A third tilted her face toward the thinning ceiling, her lips trembling. "The tree's too high. No one climbs that far. We'd fall before we made it halfway." And then one voice cracked through the rest, low, shaking, almost a whisper. "If he finds me gone, he'll come after me. You don't understand how angry he gets. I'd rather stay than be hunted." Her fingers tightened on the chain like it was a lifeline, her eyes darting to the stairs as if expecting footsteps already. The excuses came like a tide, each one tinged with fear, each one a chain heavier than iron. Their voices layered in the damp air. "I'm not strong enough. I'm too broken. It's safer to stay. Who am I without these walls? What will happen if he comes for me?" They weren't resisting me, they were resisting hope. And in their eyes I recognized myself the way I had once justified every action, every silence, every wasted year. At least this is familiar. At least I know how to survive here. God's presence burned beside me, warm against the chill. He didn't speak, but the silent guidance told me everything. I couldn't argue them free. I couldn't cut their excuses with logic. They would have to want the tree for themselves. I looked at them, at their excuses, their trembling hands, their eyes darting toward the stairs like prey waiting for a predator, and something inside me flared. Not anger, not pity, something firmer. Hope made sharp. "If you're unsure," I said gently, "then ask him. Right now, right here, pray this. God, if I'm meant to stay, then change him. Make him new. But God, if I'm meant to go, then make a way. And please make it so obvious that I can't miss it." They hesitated. Their lips pressed thin. Their eyes shifted toward one another, looking for permission they didn't think they deserved. But slowly, like flowers bending toward water, one by one, they bowed their heads. Silence fell, heavy and holy. And then movement. The chains rattled, not with force, but with release. I watched as the iron around their wrists and ankles shimmered, then softened and unraveled. The metal dissolved into silk ribbons, threads of pale light coiling loosely, harmless, slipping from their skin. They didn't even notice, their heads still bowed in prayer, whispering the words like fragile confessions. As they prayed, the murky water that had pooled around our feet for what felt like centuries began to drain, rippling and receding as if the ground itself had finally grown thirsty. Stone dried beneath us. Cracks split open in the ceiling above, spilling shafts of sunlight wider and wider until the entire basement was glowing. Dust turned spark, shadows shrank back, air moved, fresh, alive, almost sweet. The women opened their eyes slowly, confusion mixing with awe. They looked at their wrists, at the silk ribbons that fluttered like banners in the breeze where iron had once cut their skin. One of them gasped, another began to cry, not from pain, but from the sudden rush of color in her cheeks, as though the sun itself had kissed her alive again. I smiled through tears I hadn't realized was falling. "You see," I whispered, "he answers. He always answers." God's presence pressed close, steady at my shoulder, radiant with pride, and for the first time the women looked at me not as a fellow prisoner, not as someone barely surviving beside them, but as proof. One of the women, thin, gray-haired, her wrists raw where iron had once rubbed, stumbled to her feet first. She stared at the silk ribbons falling loose around her ankles, then at the dried stone beneath her toes. Her breath came in gasps, but there was fire in it. She whispered, almost in disbelief. I'm free. Another followed quickly, her prayer still hanging in the air. She pulled the ribbon from her wrists as if to test whether it would tighten again, but it only drifted to the floor like a shed skin. She laughed, a sound so sharp and bright it startled even her. Her hands trembled as she pressed them to her own heart. It's gone. It's really gone. But not all of them moved. One woman clutched at her wrists, though nothing was bound to them anymore. No, she whispered, rocking slightly. You don't understand. If I leave, he'll find me. He'll drag me back. He'll be furious when he sees I'm gone. Her eyes darted toward the stairs, wide with a terror that she couldn't shake. Another sat rigid, shaking her head. What would I even do out there? I don't know where to go. At least here, I know what to expect. Her voice cracked with the kind of logic that grows roots in fear. Better the devil you know. She faded. A third woman rubbed the silk between her fingers, watching it catch the light. I can't climb that high, she muttered, staring toward the shaft of light widening above us. I'd fall before I reached the first branch. I stepped closer, kneeling so I could meet their downcast eyes. My voice was soft, but it carried. Listen, you've seen it for yourself. The chains turned to ribbons while your heads were bowed. The water dried. The light broke through. None of that was you. It was him. If he can unravel iron like thread, do you really think he'd abandon you on the climb? The room hushed. Even the women already standing froze, listening. I continued, my voice thick with both urgency and tenderness. You don't have to figure it all out today. You don't have to know the whole map. All you have to do is ask. Jesus, show me the next step. Jesus, make a way. Jesus, hold me steady. And if you can pray that, he will guide you out of this place. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the first woman, the gray-haired one, straightened her spine and walked toward the stairs, ribbons trailing behind her like streamers. Her steps were wobbly but determined. Another followed, then another. A few stayed behind, still gripping phantom chains and still staring at the floor. The split was stark. Some carried their freedom like fire, others cradled their fear like chains they couldn't let go of. And Jesus stood beside me through it all, pride radiating from him like sunlight. His gaze swept over both groups, the ones who rose and the ones who trembled. And his expression didn't harden or dim. It was the same for all of them. Patient, aching love. The women and I reached the base of the tree. Its roots broke through the stone of the basement, sprawling wide like a map of veins across the earth. Some roots jutted into the air, worn smooth by time, polished by rain, like seats carved for reflection. They were strong enough to cradle us, yet alive with a hum that almost pulsed beneath our hands. I pressed my palm against one of the roots, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if it was my heartbeat I felt, or the tree's. The women hesitated, staring up at the impossible height. Their excuses still lingered. It's too far. What if he finds me? But I found myself whispering, this tree isn't asking you to be strong. It's asking you to trust. So we began to climb. The bark was rough, grooved, scarred in places, yet it carried no bitterness for the storms that had marked it. Each scar seemed to strengthen the hold, to deepen the roots' grip in the soil. I could almost hear it speaking. The winds made me stronger. The floods gave me deeper roots. The wounds from men were only superficial wounds, for my foundation runs much deeper than they know. As we climbed, branches bent toward us, lowering just enough to meet our hands as if the tree itself was guiding us upward. When we trembled, it steadied us. When we slipped, it bore our weight without complaint. And the higher we climbed, the more we saw. Fruit nestled in clusters, waiting until we needed it. Figs that dripped with sweetness. Grapes cool with dew. When thirst gnawed, sap welled where we touched, clean and sustaining. The tree never gave too early and never too late. Everything arrived in its moment. One woman gasped when her hand gripped a branch she hadn't meant to reach. It moved, she whispered. It came to me. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she realized it wasn't her strength pulling her up. It was grace. The branches intertwined above us, their arms woven with others beyond our sight. We were climbing one tree, but it was joined with 1,000 more, all bound underground in a network of roots so deep, so unshakable, that not even storms could undo them. And as I looked up, I heard its quiet teaching settle over me. The earth holds me so I can hold others. My purpose is not for myself, but for the shade, the shelter, the seeds. What falls from me becomes 1,000 more lives downstream, and so it is with you, child. Stand strong, for your roots run deeper than you know. You will be both wound and healing, but either way, you will plant 1,000 seeds. We climbed higher, no longer thinking of the basement or the chains, because the tree itself was teaching us how to move, how to be led, how to trust, how to rest when weary, how to draw nourishment without fear. The climb wasn't about reaching the top. It was about learning the rhythm of God in the branches, to live as rooted, giving, sheltering things, steady in the storms, generous in the seasons, bearing fruit not only for ourselves but for every life that brushed against it. The climb slowed as the branches widened into a cradle of limbs, a place that felt made for resting. The air shifted, thick with presence, as if the tree itself had something to show us. And then it came. A vision, rising not from outside, but blooming within the tree. We all saw it at once, a fig tree, but what we saw was not identical. God bent the vision to each of us so that one teaching became many seeds scattered into many hearts. One woman gasped as she watched her fig tree bear fruit too early, branches snapping under the weight because the roots were shallow. Another saw her tree lush with leaves but hollow inside, fruitless because it had poured everything into appearances. A third saw her tree growing in the wrong soil altogether, its roots choked by rocks, its branches bowed low in despair. And then there was mine. I saw my fig tree in a pot, small, pretty, and contained. For a time it had been enough, but the soil was thin and the roots could only circle back on themselves. I watched it wilt, petals dropping, fruit never maturing. The pot was killing it. And then the gardener came. He tipped the pot, pried the roots loose, and pulled the tree free. Uprooted, exposed, and trembling. It felt like loss, like failure, like the end of everything I had tried to grow, but his hands didn't discard it. He carried it. He placed it into rich earth, deep and unbounded, where the roots could stretch at last, where the branches could spread wide enough to bear fruit in season. Tears streaked my face as the truth of it struck me. That was my marriage. That was my divorce. I had thought the pot was safety, but it had been a prison, and the uprooting, painful as it was, had been mercy. Some of the women sobbed quietly. "That's me," one whispered, clutching the bark beside her. "That's my life." Another pressed her face into her hand, shaking. "That's my marriage. That's my faith." The vision held us still. "You see," I said softly, "the withering wasn't punishment. It was rescue. Being uprooted feels like death, but it's the only way to live." Every woman's eyes glistened with something different, grief, relief, terror, and hope, because God had shown us not one tree, but many, and each of us knew which one was ours. The vision folded back into bark, and we found ourselves on the tree of life again. Its branches cupped us, urging us higher. The climb wasn't finished. The gardener was still transplanting. We climbed until the branches shifted beneath us, weaving themselves into a cradle, lush, deliberate, as though the tree itself had chosen to hold us there. Above our heads hung a cluster of apples, bold and impossibly green, skin shining like glass in the light. We froze. We all knew the story. The apple is always danger, always downfall. Every instinct told us to back away. Except one. One woman reached without hesitation, biting clean through the skin before the rest of us even dared to move. Juice dripped down her chin as she looked at us wide-eyed. "What?" she asked, laughing nervously. "Why are you all staring at me?" We exchanged glances, explaining haughtily about Eve, about the serpent, about temptation disguised as fruit. Her brow furrowed. "I don't know that story. No one ever taught me that. I've never known God, never been to church, never even opened a Bible. All I know is I've been starving my whole life, and this," she lifted the apple, glistening in her hand, "this tastes like the first real food that I've ever had." Her words stunned us into silence. In her innocence, she hadn't inherited our fear. Where we saw symbols of betrayal, she saw only sustenance. And somehow, her joy stripped the fear from the rest of us. One by one, we reached for our apples. The skin was cool, the weight firm, and when we finally dared to bite, juice burst across our tongues, crisp, sweet, and alive. Relief spread among us. This was nourishment. This was safe. As we chewed, the tree's voice deepened, asking a question that pierced sharper than teeth on fruit. "Tell me, in the homes you just left, was God at the center? Was I there?" The hesitant woman who had eaten first lowered her eyes. "He wasn't in my home," she admitted softly. I didn't even know that I could invite him in. But maybe that's why I'm here now? Well, yes, I think so. We went to church every Sunday, I stayed home with the kids, and he handled everything else. That's what I thought obedience meant. Another says, my husband prayed before meals. He said we were a godly family. We had verses on the walls. I thought that counted. Another chirps up, God at the center? No. He was the excuse. Every time I asked for kindness, for tenderness, my husband threw scripture back at me like a weapon. I thought if I submitted harder, I'd find him there, but all I found was silence. Another bowed her head. I thought God was there because I kept him there. I prayed. I carried the faith for the whole house. But if I stopped, everything fell apart. It was all on me. I don't think he was ever invited in by both of us. I think I mistook my faith for ours. Each confession cracked the air wider, like the sound of wood splitting in the fire. The tree did not scold, it did not recoil. It simply let the words hang, giving space for each truth to unfold. The apples were sweet, but the questions soured on our tongues. Was God truly at the center, or had he been used as a decoration, as cover, as performance? I swallowed hard and finally spoke what was pressing in my chest. In my house, God was only mentioned when it served him. He never prayed, never sought God's presence for us, never invited him into our marriage, but then again, neither did I. But when I pushed back, when I defended my kids against his temper, when I refused to stay silent, suddenly he had scripture ready. That's when he'd remind me I was supposed to agree with him, that I was supposed to obey, that I was his partner, not the children's. God wasn't our center, he was his weapon. The words landed heavy in the nest of branches. A few women bowed their heads, recognizing their own stories inside of mine. Others let out soft gasps as though hearing aloud the thing they'd buried but never named. And the tree did not flinch. Its leaves shivered gently, carrying the sound of a hymn. The tree seemed to stir at my words, a rustle running deep through its branches. Its voice came, not booming but steady and resonant, like truth braided itself into the wind. Did you really believe I would ask you to be obedient to men who are not obedient to me? My love does not wound, it does not control, and it does not chain. Any man who rules his household with an iron tongue of scripture, who bends my words into weapons, who strikes fear into his children and calls it order, he is not serving me. He is holding hands with the devil himself and blind to the grip. The women trembled. Some began to cry, faces buried in their palms. Others looked stunned, as if hearing the truth for the very first time, realizing the obedience they thought was holy was never God's at all. The tree's leaves swayed, branches lowering around us like arms drawing us into safety. My daughters, my love restores. My love nourishes. My love frees. Anything else, no matter how it dresses itself, is Lucifer wearing my mask. The silence cracked under the weight of his words. One by one, the women began to speak, their confessions raw and unpolished, tumbling into the air like stones dropped into deep water. One woman whispered, I thought obedience was proof of faith. I thought if I submitted, maybe he'd soften. But he only grew harsher, and I told myself it must still be holy, because wasn't I the Proverbs wife? Another choked back tears. My house was never God's, it was his. His word was law, his anger was gospel. A third buried her face in her hands. I convinced myself he was the priest of our home, that if I followed I'd be safe, but all it made me was small, silent, and afraid. Then the woman who had never known God at all shook her head, bewildered. I ate the apple because I have no memory of him in my house. I've only ever known survival, scrambling to keep the lights on, to keep people fed, to keep myself from falling apart. If God was there, I never knew him. Her honesty cut through us all, simple and unashamed. The tree swayed, branches whispering overhead as if gathering all these fragments together. Its voice came low, firm, alive with both sorrow and promise. Do you see now? My love is not the echo of their voices. My love is not their anger dressed in scripture. My love is not fear or silence or servitude. My love does not diminish, it multiplies. My love does not bind, it breathes. And I have never, not once, asked you to bow to men who bow to no one but themselves. As the women sat with the tree's words, the change began quietly, so quiet that they didn't notice it at first. A flush of rose spread into one woman's cheeks, faint at first, then blooming outward, like spring breaking through frost. She blinked in surprise, her hand rising to her skin. I feel warm? Another, who had always looked pale and drawn, gasped as the gray in her eyes shifted, flecks of green and gold returning like sunlight breaking through clouds. She laughed nervously, touching her face, then her chest. It's like something woke up inside me. Their shoulders, once hunched from years of shrinking themselves small, began to straighten. Their lips, cracked from silence, softened with color. Even their hair seemed to glimmer faintly, as though the light itself was threading through them. One by one, they looked at each other, wonder dawning as recognition passed between them. We are coming back to life. The woman, who had never known God before, pressed both hands over her heart, her whole body trembling. It's like I've been starving without knowing it, and now, she swallowed, tears filling her eyes, now I feel full. The tree's voice rustled around us, steady and tender. This is what happens when truth takes root. Fear drains life, love restores it. You are not vessels for control, you are vessels for my spirit, and when I live in you, color will always return. And so it did, skin warm with vitality, eyes alight, and breath deepened. Each woman in her own way became replenished from within. As the color returned to their faces, a question burned in my mind. I couldn't hold it back. But what about marriage? My voice cracked as it left me. So, just because God wasn't in our homes, just because our husbands mistreated us, that means we're free? We can just leave that easily? The women froze. Some turned their eyes away, some held their breath. Their shoulders carried the weight of vows, of rings, of promises made once upon a time. Some of us said vows before God, one whispered, hesitant. Doesn't that still bind us? And some of us didn't, another muttered bitterly. But it feels the same, a shackle either way. The tree answered with a low, resonant hum, leaves shivering overhead as though heaven itself leaned in. Child, understand this. Where I am absent, covenant does not exist. A union without me at its center is no holy vow. I do not bless what I am not invited to build, and I will not keep what I was never asked to hold. If a marriage was rooted in performance, control, or violence, it is no covenant. It is bondage, and bondage is not of me. The women shifted, glancing at one another now, tears welling as the words sank in. The tree continued, firmer now. And yes, adultery. It grieves me that men bow their heads in prayer on Sunday and lust in secret on Monday, that they hide in cars watching lurid images, that they sneak into shadows for rendezvous, trade whispers with lovers, and call it nothing. Do you think I do not see? Every secret click, every stolen glance, every fantasy they nurture instead of faithfulness, I witness it all. The tree's voice deepened, rustling like thunder through leaves. Do not be deceived into thinking adultery is only flesh against flesh. In my eyes, the bond is broken the moment a lustful eye strays. When the heart turns elsewhere, even in secret, it has already dissolved the covenant. What was once whole becomes tainted. What was once vow becomes fracture. You call it small, invisible, and harmless, but I see the seed of betrayal planted and watered, and I do not mistake it for covenant. The women trembled at that, breath sharp as though the mental chains they had carried for decades had just cracked in two. Some gasped softly, covering their mouths. Others looked down at their hands, wedding bands suddenly heavy with new meaning, or with none at all. One woman let out a strangled laugh, then turned into a sob. Relief, disbelief, and grief tangled in the air, but over all it was lightness, the oppressive weight of false obligation slipping free, leaving space for something truer to grow. He continued. And yet, I watch my daughters chained by shame, told they must stay because of an earthly paper certificate. The tree's voice sharpened, a note of holy mockery. Do you think I count those certificates? I pay about as much attention to a marriage license as I do a fishing license. It is paper. Earth's ink does not bind heaven, only covenant does, and covenant cannot be forged without me. Silence fell heavy. The women sat with wide eyes, breath catching as if the air itself was new. One finally whispered, barely audible, "Then maybe we were never married in God's eyes at all?" The tree rustled, branches swaying like a nod. Where I am absent, there is no covenant. You are not bound to chains I did not forge. The tree's voice settled after its thunder, low now, like a lullaby carried on wind. You have wrestled enough for today. Rest your weary souls. You are safe here, fed here, sheltered here. Let me hold what you cannot. As if his command alone was spell, the branches thickened around us, weaving a nest of green that cradled us against the night. The air warmed, fragrant with blossoms that hadn't been there before, apples sweetened in the dark, releasing a perfume like honey and rain. One by one, we began to yawn. The heaviness wasn't despair anymore, but relief. Our bodies finally letting go after years of fight. Even the most restless among us curled into the woven cradle, surrendering to the safety of his word. The tree whispered as we drifted, scripture threading through the leaves like lullabies. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. I will refresh the weary and satisfy the faint. The sound wrapped around us like blankets, and then dream folded into dream as we slept. Not for hours, not for a single night, but for months. Time blurred in the branches of the tree. Sometimes one of us would stir, eyes snapping open with the old urgency of survival. What's next? Where do we go? What do we build? And always the tree would hush us back down with a rustle of leaves, its voice low and steady. Rest, child. You've carried urgency long enough. Let me carry it now. Other times the restless energy took different shapes. One woman began pacing the branch like a caged bird, convinced she had to earn the shade she was given. The tree coaxed her into painting with berry juice on bark, turning her fidget into creation. Another awoke, heavy with grief, the kind that shakes the whole body with sobs. The tree held her in silence until the cries softened into sleep again. I myself wrestled with it, felt the itch to run, to plan, to do, but each time the tree interrupted me with the simple invitations. Write, sing, laugh, play. And slowly, I did. Not with the clenched jaw of performance, but with the loose joy of a child who has nothing to prove. Seasons passed in that way. Leaves budded, fell, and returned. Our skin grew flushed with color, no longer gray. Our bodies softened from strain, our breath deepened, and our eyes brightened. We were being retrained, not in discipline or duty, but in trust. The nervous systems that had lived years braced for attack were finally being rewoven into peace. We weren't just resting, we were being reformed. At first, the tree gave us only rest, pure, uninterrupted, womb-like rest. But as the months rolled on, that rest ripened into something else, something alive. It started small. A woman who had once flinched at every sound now hummed to herself without realizing it. Another, who had been too brittle to laugh, startled us all with a sudden unguarded giggle that set the branches shaking. I found myself scribbling words across bark and leaves, not to accomplish anything, but simply because the urge to write pulsed through me like a breath. The tree never rushed us, but it nudged. Its branches would sway in rhythm, coaxing our bodies into movement. A limb curved into a swing, and soon we were pushing each other, shrieking with the kind of laughter we hadn't known since girlhood. A hollow in the trunk dripped sap sweet as honey, and we learned to gather it, tasting nourishment that was both food and medicine. Little by little, the habits of survival, flinching, apologizing, bracing for impact, gave way to a different rhythm. Curiosity, play, and expression. We painted with crushed leaves and flowers. We braided each other's hair. We shared our stories without shame, finding our voices steadying where once they had shook. It wasn't discipline that healed us. It wasn't duty. It was rhythm, the daily, sacred cadence of God's care woven into everything, in the food that appeared when we hungered, in the shelter that wrapped us when storms blew through, in the tree's quiet instruction when worry tried to pull us back into striving. We were learning not just to rest, but to live as though God himself was the ground beneath our feet, the branch beneath our hands, and the song in our lungs. We weren't only recovering, we were being retrained for freedom. One evening, as twilight painted the branches in lavender and gold, I finally asked the question that had been pressing against my ribs. How is this possible? My voice trembled with the weight of it. Out there, the world is in ruins. I know it. I can feel it. And yet here, we rest, we laugh, we create. None of it touches us. Why? The branches above me shivered, not in wind, but in reply. The voice had been steadying us all along, answered, low and certain. Because I keep you now. You asked me to lead your life. You surrendered. And when the intention of the heart is to seek me, not just for comfort, but closeness, I remove the noise. I strip away the distractions. Nothing on earth can stand in the way of a soul who longs to be near me. The words settled over me like a mantle, but they stirred the others awake. One by one, their worries rose, spilling into the nest. A woman with still tired eyes whispered, "What about my children? I left them behind. What if they're suffering without me?" The leaves swayed, shivering with quiet reassurance. "Do you think I care less for them than you do? I was father before you were mother. Rest, I keep them too." Another woman pressed her hand to her chest. "But what about money? I've never had enough. How will I survive without scraping and striving?" The tree's voice rolled through the branches like a tide. "Do the birds herd coins? Do the lilies punch clocks? And yet I feed them, clothe them, keep them in beauty. How much more then will I keep you?" A third woman stepped forward, her voice shaking. "But what if he comes for me? What if he hunts me down and drags me back?" The trunk groaned, steady and strong. "He cannot touch what I have claimed. No chain forged by anger can hold against my hand. You are free." Another wide-eyed and uncertain whispered, "But I've never known you. I don't even know how to pray. What if I don't do it right?" The tree bent toward her like a father stooping low to a child. "And yet here you are, speaking to me already. Do you think I measure your words? I measure your heart. Even silence is prayer when it leans toward me." The hush that followed was holy. We sat there, tears on our cheeks, the kind of tears that come when fear breaks into trust. "Let the world rage," the tree said at last, its voice wrapping us in calm. "Here, you are mine, and nothing, not famine, not fear, not even death itself, can take you from my keeping." One evening, after what felt like forever in the rhythm of rest, the tree stirred. Its branches hummed low like a question carried on the wind. "Daughters," God said, his voice both everywhere and right beside us, "tell me, what kind of life do you want next?" The words hung heavy. We glanced at one another unsure. To hope felt dangerous. To wish felt reckless. For so long, survival had been the only prayer we dared. One woman bowed her head, voice trembling. "I just want a little house of my own, a place no one can take from me, a door that doesn't slam with fear." Another, wringing her hands, whispered, "I want my children back. I want them to know me, not the version of me that was beaten down, but the mother that I was meant to be." Another dared more. "Land," she said quietly, "property that is mine, soil that I can tend without anyone telling me I don't belong there." One laughed nervously. "I've never even left my county. Maybe I'd like to see the world, just once." The tree swayed, branches curling closer as if to cup each voice. God listened, smiling gently, but then he chuckled, shaking his head like a parent watching a child ask for crumbs when there's a feast waiting. "Too small," he said warmly. "You're asking too small. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who you are to me? I don't deal in scraps. I don't build cages. Ask bigger, hope wider. Dream like daughters who belong to the King of Heaven." The women looked at each other again, hesitant smiles beginning to flicker. Could it really be that simple? That safe? And then his gaze turned toward me. I swallowed, feeling my throat catch, and whispered, "I want a loving, sarcastic family of my own. One that teases and laughs and fights for each other, not against each other. That's what I want." For a moment silence stretched, then God laughed, deep in delight, and the sound shaking through the branches like wind in the leaves. "Now that's more like it." His laughter lingered in the branches, warm and steady, as if the whole tree were shaking with a delight at our little hesitant hopes. We leaned back into the nest, our hearts lighter, our souls restless in a new way, not with fear, but with longing. And then, almost as one, the women began to murmur. It wasn't about houses or children or land anymore. It was about him. One finally said what the rest of us were thinking. "We've been asking you for everything, but we don't really know you, do we? You know every detail about us, but we know almost nothing about you." There was a silence, holy but playful, like God had been waiting for this very shift. "Do you have a favorite food?" another woman asked timidly. The tree seemed to laugh, leaves rustling as he answered, "Manna, of course. Always manna." Then he leaned in, lowering his voice to a whisper, "But if one more person offers me cake, I might be sick." We gasped, then broke into laughter, real, rolling laughter that cracked something open in the air. For a moment, he wasn't just God of thunder and mountains, he was Abba joking with his daughters. Another asked, "Can you really see the future and the past?" "Yes," he said, with the calm weight of oceans in his tone. "Time is not a line to me. Time is an ocean, and I am the ocean. I see every wave at once. I know the storms before they form. I know the calm before you taste it. What surprises you never surprises me. The weight of that landed, not heavy but safe, like we were sitting in the lap of something vast, something unshakable. Finally, a voice rose soft from the nest. What's your favorite place on earth? He smiled, the kind of smile you know someone's been keeping for their favorite question. I would rather show you. The branches above us shifted, leaves shimmering like 1,000 tiny screens. Then images began to play across their green faces as if the tree itself had become a projection of his heart. We saw a grandfather rocking in a chair, his toddler grandson belly laughing in his lap. We saw a sibling shrieking with joy, flying down a water slide, arms tangled, faces drenched in delight. We saw a little boy in a wheelchair, his older sister running with abandon, her arms out like an airplane wing as they soared together across the concrete. We saw a new mother in the quiet of night rocking her newborn. Her finger traced his cheek, feather light, her whole being pouring adoration into that tiny face. We saw a pregnant woman lying in bed, her hair spilled across the pillow, the weight of new life glowing beneath her skin. Beside her, her husband leaned down, ear pressed against her belly, whispering secrets and laughter to the child not yet born. We saw two women standing beneath an arc of wildflowers, their hands clasped, eyes shining as vows passed between them. Their kiss was soft and reverent, witnessed only by God and the joy shimmering in the air. We saw two men on a porch swing at dusk, foreheads pressed together in quiet gratitude, rocking back and forth as the cicadas sang. The leaves glowed brighter as the last vision faded. His voice came softly like the answer had been woven through every frame. My favorite place is wherever there is love. That's where I dwell. That's where I delight. We sat in stunned silence, eyes glistening and hearts blooming. For the first time, we weren't just survivors or seekers. We were daughters, gathered around a father who wanted us to know him as we had longed to be known. We sat in silence, drinking in the visions like water after a lifetime of thirst. Every image shimmered with a kind of truth deeper than words, love in its rawest, purest form. Then one of the women spoke up, her voice small but steady. How are we seeing these snapshots of other people's lives? It feels like we're peering straight into the heart of the world. The branches above us rustled as the tree itself leaned closer, and his voice came, calm and sure, laced with mystery. You are. My eyes are everywhere because I am in you. I see what you see because I dwell within you. Whether you acknowledge me or not, I feel every thought, every emotion, every worry and desire. I see through your eyes as much as I see from the heavens. He paused, and the light through the leaves shifted, spilling golden across our faces. I do not watch from a distance. I live in the very marrow of you. That's why nothing is hidden from me. Not your sorrow, not your laughter, not even the moments you think are too small to matter. They matter because you matter. I am in all of it. A hush fell heavier than before. It wasn't fear, it was awe. The kind that made us lean closer to him without moving, as though his words alone pulled us deeper into his presence. Some of the women broke into tears, undone by the realization that they had never once been unseen. Others laughed, the sound almost nervous, but tinged with relief, as if the weight of hiding had just been lifted off their shoulders. The moment stretched holy and tender until I cleared my throat and muttered under my breath, "Yikes, I better clean some things up then." God's laughter rolled through the branches like a warm breeze, shaking leaves loose in a shimmer of gold and green. "Child," he said, eyes twinkling, "you think I didn't already see?" And still, I stayed. The day stretched long and golden. Somewhere between play and sleep, our desires began to bend in unexpected ways. What started as small, earthly hopes grew into something bigger, less about survival and more about service. God didn't hand us blueprints. He only whispered hints tucked into dreams and drifting thoughts until our wishes reshaped themselves into purpose. The woman who once longed for a cottage of her own woke one morning sketching not houses but open spaces, rows of soil, trellises, and orchards. "I thought I wanted safety," she said slowly, staring at her rough drawings. "But what I really want is land that feeds people, a place where I can teach others to grow. Not just food, but faith, to help them see that God is as steady as the seasons." The mother who wanted only to hold her children again began to dream of tables long enough for neighbors, strangers, and family alike. "It's not just about reunion anymore," she whispered, tears brimming. "I want to make a home where anyone who is hungry for love, for God, can sit down and be filled. A place where my children and I can host him together." The restless one who first prayed to travel found her heart turning strangely inward. She no longer dreamed of distant places, but of people who wandered. Maybe I don't need to chase the horizon, she admitted. Maybe my calling is to be a refuge for the ones who are weary, to teach the wanderers how to root themselves in God. The gardener, who asked only for soil, began weaving garlands that looked like prayers. I wanted dirt and seed, she said with a laugh, but I think what I really want is to create beauty that points back to Him. Songs and gardens and spaces where people can breathe in His peace and remember they are loved. And me, my desire shifted most of all. At first, I thought I wanted just a family, a little circle of belonging. But as I rested in Him, I realized what I really wanted was to tell this story, to tell how God came to me in the dark, healed me piece by piece, held me when I thought I was unlovable, nurtured me when I was fragile, and renewed me when I thought I was spent. I wanted to share how I came to know Him, not as a distant idea, but as someone intimately present, someone who laughed with me, teased me, and stayed with me through every wound. And then, more than just telling my own story, I wanted to help others create theirs, to guide them in setting intentions with God, and listening for His whispers, and learning His rhythm until they could say, "This is how He came to me. This is how He healed me. This is how I know Him now." It wasn't about writing chapters for myself anymore. It was about helping others find the ink in their own hands, to partner with God in the holy act of co-creation. My story would be the spark, but theirs, their countless stories, would become the fire. When I finally voiced it, my desire to tell this story, God smiled as if He'd been waiting all along. "I want to write it down," I confessed. "I want to tell how you healed me, how you held me, how you became real to me. And then I want to help others tell their own stories so that they can know you like I do. I don't want my healing to end with me. I want it to spread." He nodded, eyes warm and steady. "Do you know what happens when you sow a seed, Lacey?" I thought of gardens, of the women who long for land to grow food. "It multiplies," I said simply. "Yes," he said, "but sometimes I don't give you a seed. Sometimes I give you yeast." I tilted my head, curious. "Yeast looks small," he went on, "insignificant, easy to miss. But when you knead it into dough, it changes everything. Quiet, invisibly, it makes the whole thing rise." The words settled heavy and light at the same time, threading into my chest. "Your story is yeast," he whispered. "Your prayers, your surrender, your faith, they've already begun to rise. What looks small, what feels hidden, is what I use to transform. I don't need you to shout or strive. I need you to knead, to press your story into the lives of others so it works its way through until the whole loaf is alive." I swallowed hard, tears stinging. "So, this book?" He smiled wider. "This book will be Hefe. It will move through culture, through broken theology, through all the places that have diminished my daughters, and it will make truth rise. You don't need to force it, just offer it. Just mix it in, and I'll do the rest." I sat quiet for a long time, the image searing itself into me. My story, not as spotlight, but as yeast, small, invisible, but alive, transforming everything it touched. I finally realized the other women were listening. They had been leaning in the whole time, their eyes wide, their hands resting still in their laps. "Yeast?" one finally asked, her voice almost shy. "Could my story be yeast too?" God turned toward her, his expression soft but alive with delight. "Yes. Every story surrendered to me carries yeast. Even the ones you think are ruined, even the ones you'd rather hide, the kingdom rises through what you share." Another woman, her eyes rimmed red from years of silence, whispered, "But what if you don't know how to tell it? What if I can't make it beautiful?" "Yeast doesn't have to be pretty," he answered. "It only has to be alive. Speak the truth of what I've done for you, and that will be enough. The rise will come from me." We glanced at one another, hesitant, then hopeful. For the first time, I saw their chains not just gone, but replaced with something stronger, a pull upward, a rising that didn't come from effort, but from presence. Another woman laughed softly through her tears. "So we're not survivors, we're bakers." God chuckled, the sound rumbling like a stream over stones. "Yes, bakers of the kingdom. You knead in the yeast of testimony, and I will feed the world with it." The thought was almost too much, but it didn't feel heavy. It felt light, like laughter rising in my chest. I looked around at them, these women who had once been gray and shackled. Now their eyes glowed with color, their voice lifting with ideas, with possibility of hope spreading far beyond us. I turned back to him and said, trembling but certain, "Then let's bake." The days, or maybe months, of resting had trained us into a rhythm so soft it almost felt like floating. But one morning a current stirred inside me, insistent and unfamiliar. It wasn't frantic like survival had always been. It was different, full, swelling, and demanding to be acknowledged. I sat forward in the nest of branches, the others watching. There's something in me, I admitted, voice low. It's always been there, but I've never had space for it. My whole life I've had to use my strength on healing, on mending what's been broken. I've never let myself bloom, never dared to, but now, my words trailed as my hands trembled in my lap. Now it's pressing to come alive. I don't know what it will be. It could be beautiful. It could be terrifying. And I can't promise that it won't scare you. The women leaned closer, wide-eyed. Some nodded, urging me on, and others shrank back, uncertain. So I turned my face upward and whispered, steady but trembling, "God, is it okay? Do you give me permission to release this?" The air itself seemed to pause, until I felt his answer settle in my bones. Yes. From my shoulders, from my back, from the marrow of me, 3 shapes unfurled. Black, gold scales gleamed in the light, hoods flaring wide like banners. King cobras, alive and towering, each with my face shimmering faintly across its hood. The women gasped. One covered her mouth, another pressed her back against the branches as though the air itself had turned holy and dangerous. Awe and fear braided together in the space around us. I froze, my own heart thundering. What? What is this? I whispered, half to myself and half to God. He stepped closer, not alarmed, not surprised, but steady, as if he'd been waiting for this all along. Snakes have always meant change, he said, his voice low and sure, but not all change is holy. In Eden, the serpent's change came through disobedience, crossing a line my father had drawn. That kind of change is rebellion, and it brings death. But this, he gestured toward the cobra swaying around me, this is a different kind of change. This is obedience restored, life blooming out of trust. It is what happens when you stop resisting me and start creating with me. His eyes burned gentle and fierce at once. These 3 are not curses, they are gifts. Each one reveals what your story is becoming. One is a love story, divine, holy, rooted in covenant. One is co-creation with Jesus himself, our partnership, your yes to walk with me in step and in rhythm. And the third is evidence, proof of my presence manifesting in your life, visible for others through your obedience and trust. The women stared, astonished. Some leaned forward as if to touch the air around them. Others just wept silently, undone by the sight. I shook. My knees pressed hard into the bark beneath me. But what if I can't control them? I asked, voice raw. What if I'm not ready? God's eyes softened. You do not have to control them. You only have to surrender them back to me. What I awaken in you, I will guide, always. I stayed perfectly still, the 3 king cobras rising and swaying around me like living smoke, their hoods glinting in the soft green light. My breath felt too loud. The women around me sat pressed into branches of the tree, their eyes huge, their bodies caught between awe and fear. I turned my head toward Jesus. He hadn't moved. He was still leaning against the trunk of the tree, arms crossed, eyes fixed on me. Not the cobras and not the drama, just me. Do you want me to release them? My voice came out thin, like it had traveled a long way to get to him. Is this what you're asking of me? He tilted his head slightly, a small, knowing smile on his lips. It's your decision, Lacey. They're yours. But, his eyes brightened, this is what I've been growing inside you all along. The waiting, the healing, the quiet, the play, all of it has been making space for this. It's the most natural thing in you, and once you let them go, they will not belong just to you anymore. They will belong to the world. Something in my chest broke open at his words, and I knew with a clarity deeper than thought that he was right. I could feel the cobras pulsing like extra heartbeats. This wasn't a whim. It was my life folding into its own inevitability. It felt big, holy, like a purpose too large to contain. I swallowed hard. And if I don't? He stepped closer, the smile softening. You'll never be forced, but you'll always feel them pressing against your ribs, waiting. They were planted for release. That's why they exist. Inside me, a decision rose, quiet and absolute. There was no turning back. This was who I was now. I didn't even have to say yes out loud. The yes happened inside me, and then the world around me felt it. The tree shuddered beneath us. Leaves trembled, then dissolved into light. The branches that had been holding us so gently splintered into streaks of gold and vanished. The green canopy turned to black velvet, like a curtain falling away. Everything went still. I watched as the three king cobras rose higher, hoods flaring, their bodies shining like braided rivers of gold and onyx. They weren't just mine anymore, they were alive, moving of their own accord, coiling upward into the new darkness. The women gasped as the last remnants of the tree faded. I could feel their awe, their fear, their hope, but it all blurred at the edges. For a moment, it was just me, the cobras, and Jesus in the dark. And even in the blackness, his eyes still held mine.